Hello and welcome to Fork in the Road. My name is Rusty Gaylord. I am the host and very happy to have you here joining us. Fork in the Road is a weekly conversation every Wednesday at noon Pacific time where we talk with interesting, successful leaders to explore their journey and where they are. So I am just getting a message here saying that we are having some trouble posting on LinkedIn. So we're going to see if that gets resolved or not. I'm hoping it does because we had a little date change, but I'm going to go ahead and let's get started. And let's just, this is right now it's only, so let's just bring on Guy. Guy, you can bear with me here and join me in this conversation. Guy Yalif is a longtime friend of mine. We were college classmates. He's the CEO of Intellimize. So super happy to have you here with us, Guy.
Thanks for having me, Rusty. Really excited to join you today, and we'll work through whatever technical stuff's going on happily.
Awesome. So let's see here. All right, well, let's see if we can just get this thing added on here.
Anything I can do to help?
What's that? Oh, no. This is where I get into the limits of my technical ability to live stream on LinkedIn. But it says that we are, let me just open up another tab here and see if we've got it. And we are live on LinkedIn. All right, so let's roll here. So if you've been watching, thank you for your patience. We had to work through a short little technical hiccup, but let's just jump in rather than spend any more time explaining that. So Guy, as we were chatting before, the title of the show is Fork in the Road. And I think it's interesting to look at some of those changes in direction or decisions you made in your career. And you described one where you left a stable company and took a huge pay cut to go work at a small unknown company, which turned out to be a very good decision, but it wasn't clear at the time. So tell us about that moment and how you make a decision like that.
Happy to share. I hope it is helpful for those on the live stream and listening after. In 2010, I was at Yahoo, which was a high-paying, secure job with lots of equity, and moved to Twitter. Twitter was very much a consumer thing at the time, but I was in the ads business. I was in ad tech, and Twitter's ad business was like 10 or 20 people at the time, effectively no revenue. It was not clear that Twitter would successfully be able to put ads into this bespoke consumer experience. And so it felt risky at the time. It was a big financial change, to your point. It was actually it was a 6-figure pay cut to do that move. And 2 weeks later, I was probably working twice as hard, but was 3 times less stressed. I was happier because Yahoo, no ding on Yahoo, was just a much larger organization. So a lot of the energy went towards the meeting, to prep for the meeting, to do the alignment, to get the thing done. At Twitter, it was small enough, all the energy went out the door to making customers successful. And that made me happy. I was fortunate to be there through the IPO. Financially, it ended up working out, but that was not clear in the beginning when the decision was made.
So how did you make a decision like that, right? I mean, most people, when faced with this idea, and I've faced a similar decision, right? Leaving a well-paid, stable job that feels secure to go do something that feels risky. How did you do that?
It was a bit about just thinking about priorities and values and what I'm trying to optimize for. Recognizing that it's a long career. I enjoy working, and so I enjoy doing what I'm doing, and the belief that I would be happier, frankly. Again, no ding on Yahoo, but being at a smaller place, also being in a place that was doing this at that time. Twitter on the consumer presence was absolutely on its ascendancy, and I thought that might be a very interesting place to go. And the ad business, as I mentioned, was in its infancy, and the idea of building that seemed like a lot of fun. And so I very much wanted to know this company is not going to go away. That was almost certain then. It wasn't 100% certain, but it was definitely not like joining a 5-person startup kind of thing. It was the company itself was a few hundred people at that time. And talking with my partner, talking with my wife, we've said to each other, I feel very, very fortunate, but live under a bridge with you. I care that you're happy. When you're happy at work, the rest of life is happy. You're a better husband. You're a better father. You're a better partner in life. And that very much factored into it. And I recognize that it's a privilege to be able to say that, because unlike, like when I was a young child, we were not thinking every day, are we going to be able to afford our rent or our mortgage? And so there was a bit of cushion there to be able to take a risk like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, so tuning into your values, what's important to you, pursuing what you think is going to make you happier. And the other thing I think is important, what you said, is it's a long career, right? We have a long career, we have a long life. And when you look at this one change in the context of a long career, it doesn't feel as intimidating. Did you want to add to that?
If I may, you triggered something. There was also, to your point about the long career, there was a very conscious choice about the balance of blue chip versus less well-known companies on my resume. I had the good fortune of working at several well-known blue chip companies previously, and had worked at one startup in .com 1 that nobody's ever heard of, nobody will have ever heard of, and then Twitter, which people had heard of, but it wasn't clear that it was going to be at that level. And that felt like an okay risk, given the choices I was trying to make in my career. For others, like, that trade-off isn't important at all, but in my calculus, it was definitely a thing. Does that resonate?
Yeah, absolutely. But, and that's a very kind of like strategic career planning kind of move. I want to circle back to one of the other things that you mentioned as you were talking about this, and you also mentioned the startup, is you joined Twitter and you took a big pay cut, but you were working twice as hard, but you were enjoying it more. And I think that's such an interesting place to find yourself, is you can work more, but actually enjoy it at the same time. And what do you think? I mean, I guess you already spoke to that, right? Which was, it was about your energy and what your personal productivity. Like, you're not doing at the meeting to prepare for the meeting to, go in for the decision. You're actually doing work that's going out the door and impacting customers. And it sounds like that kind of alignment and that kind of productivity, even though it required a lot of hours, was really rewarding to you.
It very, very much was. And I recognize different things make different people happy. We all have friends who are really excellent at navigating that larger org and get satisfaction out of it.
Yeah.
And like navigating the org and feel great impact by having that efficacy. Mm-hmm. That happened to be less my jam at that point in time. And so, I mean, I think most of us probably spend more time working than we do with our family, regardless of whether we work hard or not. That's the reality of the math. And so to have the the energy around that being energy that you enjoy, that was worth it. That was the heart of it. And that for me was a big learning moment that absolutely drove future career choices, to say at its core, it's a long career, but life's short. You got to do stuff you like doing with people you enjoy doing it with.
Oh, isn't that the truth? Well, one of the things I think that's so interesting about you, Guy, is for, various parts of your career, you've actually measured and tracked how many hours you work. I know some people do that. Some people do time tracking, that kind of thing, but you were doing this on your own, and you've, tell us about your startup experience. Tell us about what you've learned from that process of measuring yourself and how many hours you put into your work.
The idea wasn't mine. It came from Drucker's book, The Effective Executive, saying, hey, this is the scarcest asset you have, measure it. And so, for better or for worse, I've been doing it for like 15, 20 years. And in .com, actually more than, because in .com 1, I went to a startup right out of the grad school you and I both went to, and worked. I was employee 1. I worked an average of 80 hours a week working, not the messing around time, peaked at 135 for 2 years, loved it. Total self-actualization. In the startup I'm at right now, I know my wife. I know my 2 daughters. I have hobbies. I spend time with my friends. The balance is very different. And I actually feel like I get more done right now. It's deeply ingrained, as you and I were talking about, in both of us, to like work hard, good things will happen. And in .com 1, it was very much pouring on the hours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I think it is ingrained for a lot of us, that idea of work hard, and that is the path to success. I certainly got that from my upbringing. I know you got it from your upbringing, but also for smart, successful people and living in Silicon Valley, that's also the culture here. Work hard, right? It's celebrated to work 80 hours or even 130 hours in your startup, because that's, push, 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 go for it, because that's what it takes to get it done. And yet you just said that you're more productive now, and you're not working as many hours. So like, how does that work? Like, how do you make that switch? And then what are you doing differently now that you weren't doing before?
The hardest thing about that switch was this deep-seated belief from childhood of work really, really hard and good things will happen. And by the way, that happened in school, right? We worked really hard. Good grades happened. Good things happened. You went to better schools, and like lots of external validation about that. And it's not that it's not true, but to find some balance, that a huge eye opener for me was realizing that taking a step back to, frankly, think about something else, whether that's family or friends or hobby, outside of work, at least for me, and I think for many, made me more effective at work. I actually had more clarity of thought. The biggest one was to have time when I like to talk with someone in the middle of the day, or have a half an hour block and actually go for a walk. To me, I feel incredible guilt doing that. I'm like, this is time I should be productive. I really need to be using this and maximizing every minute. Time is the scarcest thing I have. And to realize that sometimes actually that let me take a step back and figure out, where should I point all these hours? Where's the most effective place for me to spend my time? Because all those hours in .com1, they had a big impact, but I could have actually, in retrospect, had more of an impact with fewer hours, taking a step back and thinking each week or each day or each whatever time, what are the things I can uniquely do? Where should I put that energy? And so the concept of like taking a break to get more done, or going slow to go fast, feels very oxymoronic to me. And it has been, the hardest thing has actually been giving myself permission to do it. If you look at my week, it doesn't look like I'm sitting on a beach somewhere, but even that half hour was like, oh my God, I have such cognitive dissonance over not maximizing every minute. And to realize this actually is the maximizing thing to do. That was, at least for me, a big moment.
And to be willing to do it. I mean, that's what I heard here in that for you, right? It's like giving yourself permission to take that 30 minutes to go for a walk, and then actually doing it, right? It's one thing to put it on your calendar. It's another to actually go out the door and walk, and be willing to do it, even though it's uncomfortable. There's actually a great article on Medium, which maybe I'll post in the comments here, that Barack Obama wrote about making decisions. And he talked about, I mean, think about whether you like Obama or not, anyone in that position has to make incredible decisions, and so difficult, and so much impact from the decisions they make. And he talks about his decision-making process, and oftentimes it included stepping away. He would talk about being involved in a discussion. He would step away for whatever that reason, or to do whatever it was he was doing, sometimes have dinner with his family or whatever. Then he would come back, and it was in that step away moment that he got the clarity about what the right decision was to move forward. And so I want to echo that, that what you're just saying is, there's so much that can come from the distance from the thing that you're working on all the time.
Go ahead.
Well, so I wanted to just kind of bring in another point, which is you've mentioned before that this idea of where your energy is pointed, right? When you were at Yahoo, which was a bigger company, versus going to Twitter at the time, which was a smaller company, you could direct more of your energy towards product features and changes that were going into production quickly and impacting customers right away. And you've also talked about, by working less, you get more clarity so that you can focus your energy on the things that are going to make a difference. And, both of those comments just highlight to me this emphasis, perhaps, that you're putting on where are you putting your energy, right? Time is your most precious resource, but your energy goes with that. And being deliberate about focusing your energy sounds like it's an important element of this. Maybe I'm not working as many hours, but I'm more focused in where I'm putting my energy.
You absolutely nailed it. And ultimately, like, it just makes me happier. I enjoy my work more. I enjoy the people with whom I work more. I enjoy what I'm doing more. And that absolutely impacts my whole life.
Yeah. Well, and you even said, right? I mean, you said when you were talking about this with your wife, when you're happier at work, you're happier at home. And I think it goes the other way too. When you're happier at home, you're happier at work. Does being happier, do you think, make you more effective in your work?
1,000%. Totally. I find um, I'm more resilient to the inevitable ups and downs. I make better decisions. I think more clearly, focus in the right areas more. I think it has a huge impact.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I also, corollary of that is actually sleep. At least for me, as I've gotten older, realizing what a big lever that is, and to prioritize it. I, for many, many, many years, would get, I don't know, 3 to 5 a week, 3 to 5 a night during the week, a bunch more on the weekend. Then I tried like 6. Now I'm trying like 7 or 7.5. And I people care about what they're doing. They come with emotions. Sometimes those emotions are positive, negative. I find myself more resilient, less reactive to those emotions, and more supportive of the people around me. I find myself making better decisions when something inevitably doesn't go your way, right? Life is not straight up and to the right. There are bumps in the curve. And so I've actually gotten to, you and I've talked about this elsewhere, at least for me, like that which you measure gets done. So I measure it. This is not my wedding ring. That's sitting somewhere else. This is a sleep tracker. So every morning I get up and I'm like, how much did I sleep? What was the quality of that sleep? And I find that has a non-trivial impact on my energy and how happy I am and how effective I am.
Yeah, if I were to kind of draw a theme from this conversation, which is super interesting, it's not really where I expected we would go, but it's really about managing your energy. It's about sleeping well, right? Obviously, that's a part of managing your energy, but it's also about doing work that you enjoy, that makes you happy, right? Because when you're happy, you're more energetic. When you're stressed, you're going to be more tired. I mean, that's just natural. And then you're talking about time out to be clear and thoughtful about where you're focusing your energy. So it's about maintaining and managing your energy to maximize the impact and the experience that you're having at work and in life more broadly.
That is better summarized than anything I could have said. And you at least for me, triggered like, what are you optimizing for? I have friends that they are truly happily optimizing for the number in the bank account. And it is important to be able to pay the bills and do the things you want to do. But the bigger that number, the happier they are. And I recognize that is an important thing. If you say, hey, you know what, if I'm happy, not just going on vacation all the time, but like being productive makes me happy, these things that can lead to some other things. So the taking time to go for that walk, it makes me happy to then point my energy in the right direction. Or if it's easy for me to slip into back-to-back meetings all day for 12 hours a day, and then have time to do other work. I'm less effective then. That produces cognitive dissonance because I'm like, gosh darn it, I'm working really hard, but I'm not getting stuff done because I need some time to just work, not just be in meetings. Yeah. And having the mental model that you said of energy and happiness guides one to then think, okay, well, how do I change this? Am I going to go block time? Am I going to go try some other techniques like putting my one-on-ones on Mondays and Fridays and having external meetings on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday? Some of those things flow naturally out of saying, I want to enjoy what I'm doing. I want to optimize for my energy. I want to optimize for some version of happiness. Mm-hmm. How does that land for you?
Absolutely. I think this comes back to being deliberate. And the other thing I think I take from that, right? Just like the meeting management piece, right? Like putting your internal meetings on Monday and Friday, putting your external meetings in the middle of the week, that may work for some people. It may not work for others, but being willing to try it and experiment. And that's one of the things I love about the way you've quantified your life in some way. I could never do that. I wouldn't have the discipline to keep that kind of record and track it. But like the other thing that's implicit in that, and you even talked about it around sleep, was being willing to experiment. Well, I used to sleep this amount and now I add an hour. Like what happens? Like, am I more effective? Do I feel better? Am I happier? Those are all great things. Can I continue? Where do you continue to experiment, whether it's time management or time blocking or how you manage your meetings or any of that? I just think that idea of experimenting and seeing what works for you, along with this idea of what is your goal? What are you optimizing for? Such an important question. I think oftentimes when you think about optimizing, we think about it in terms of being right or getting promoted or achieving some kind of external measure of success. But one of the things that you've continued to bring back, and this theme that I was thinking about is your energy or your happiness, because in the end, we're all going to leave this life at some point. We're all going to die. That's the inevitable conclusion of this journey of life. And at what point, like, what matters then, right? In those last moments, what matters? And I would think that the kinds of things we're talking about rank pretty high on my list, at least.
That resonates for me completely. Ditto. And, for those that might be listening that are like, I don't know what I'm optimizing for.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would humbly suggest to apply the same thing you were describing. Experiment with it. Go optimize for your bank account. Go optimize for your title. Go optimize for happiness. Try those on for a year. See what happens, right? Those aren't things that adjust immediately. Maybe it's a couple of years. And be gentle on yourself that you don't know and that's part of the journey. And if you then sub-optimized for a year because you realized, oh, this isn't the one for me, great. You learned something from that.
Yeah.
And the experimentation mentality and the quantification, it's probably highly correlated with the fact that the company I'm a part of right now is all about experimentation and optimization. So like there's good alignment there too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's that's being willing to be wrong. It's hard for many of us to get there, to be willing to be wrong, right? It's like we've been so trained to be right, to work hard, to get the right answer, to get an A in school, to be promoted, to get the right answer at work, to be held up as like, oh, Rusty or Guy is doing everything well. It's challenging for many of us to contemplate the idea of making a mistake, or getting it wrong. But fundamentally, that's what experimentation and learning is all about. Was that journey a difficult one for you?
Yes, to accept that. Well, so the being willing to be wrong for whatever reason has always been comfortable for me. Like I'm totally game for that. There isn't I feel like the times when I've been uncomfortable with that is also the times when others are unwilling to be wrong is when you're really attached to a particular outcome. Like I'm really attached to being right, or I'm really attached to being promoted right now, or I'm really attached to this number in my bank account. And the more you could be gentle to yourself and shift that to preference. I prefer to be promoted right now. I'd be happier. I'd be happier if there was more money in my bank account, but to recognize that, you don't have total control over those things. I think makes it it lowers the stakes. When you're wrong, you're like, okay, then I learned something about that, rather than one of my kids once said to me, I'm late on turning in this homework. If I don't turn in this homework, I'm going to get a bad grade. If I don't get a bad grade, I'm not going to go to a good college. If I don't get a good college, I won't get a good job. If I don't get a good job, I'm going to be homeless. And so the stakes on turning in this homework were so high. You can be a little gentler on yourself, and it's a little easier to be wrong when it doesn't have that big of an implication.
Yeah. So easy to see that in one of your kids, and so challenging to accept it in yourself oftentimes, right? It's like we get the same way. If I don't do this presentation perfectly, then this, and it's like, I'm not going to hit all of my goals. And I think, back to one of the things you talked about is it's a long career, right? Any one decision, any one thing that's going on in your career isn't necessarily going to make or break your career. And so why not do it in a way that you want to do it, that brings the best of you, that optimizes your energy, that points your energy in the direction that you want to go in. It's just so much of a more empowering way to navigate your career and your life.
Right on. And I don't know about you, I did not know what that meant for me at the beginning of my career. Yeah. And so I'm glad I tried on different things for size and was like, ooh, I like this. Ooh, I like that. Like, you and I were both engineers undergrad. I then did management consulting, then came out to Silicon Valley, where product management is the marriage of being good at business and good at tech. I was like, oh, I like both of these together. This makes me happy. Could have been something else entirely, but to be able to experiment and say, the 3 years in management consulting, that's not the career I chose long-term. To me, there's not a millimeter of me that thinks those were wasted years. I learned something during those years. I actually learned a lot. They were fantastic years, but like one could say, ooh, that was wasted. Not at all. It helped me try on something for size and learn more about what makes me happy.
Back to this idea of experimentation, especially early in your career when you don't know what you're doing, it's so important to get that diversity of experience and figure out what you like. but totally relevant later too. I mean, you made this bold move to, which was where we started the conversation, to bring it full circle, is to leave a well-established, stable company to go to a relatively smaller versus high growth environment, and you don't know what's going to happen. But it's part of this idea of being willing to experiment and go for what you want to have. Guy, thank you so much for this conversation. This has just been, it's been great to talk to you and great to have you here on Fork in the Road. I'm hoping that everybody listening took a lot away from this, because there were a lot of great nuggets in here. If people wanted to reach out with you, can they send you a message on LinkedIn to connect with you there, learn more about you and what you're up to?
Absolutely. Please do. Rusty, it was a privilege to join you here. I hope folks found it useful. And yeah, look forward to continuing the dialogue.
Awesome. Thanks, Guy.